Heroes of the City of Man, Section 1, Parts 2 and 3, page 62 to the end of the chapter. Part 2, The Birth and Battles of the Gods. Above, we examined how the 5 main stories are arranged in the Theogony. As Hesiod wrote the poem, however, the stories are embedded in extremely detailed and complex genealogical lists. To understand the stories, it is important to have some grasp of the flow of the genealogies. They are arranged in a series of cycles, each of which covers a related set of generations. A chart or several may help. Cycle 1, the first set of lists, can be summarized as follows. This first genealogical cycle ends with the youngest of the Titans, Kronos, overthrowing his father and taking his position as the chief of the gods. Cycle 2 also has a triple structure, and each of the sections matches a corresponding section in the first cycle. Night is one of the children of Chasm in the first cycle, and her children are listed in the first section of the second cycle. Sea is one of the children of the earth, and his children are listed in the second portion of the second cycle. Kronos' children are the focus of the third section of cycle 2. The main difference between the cycles is that the second is much more elaborate. Note that the second cycle, like the first, ends with a change in leadership when Zeus overthrows Kronos, as Kronos has overthrown heaven. Thus, to summarize, first cycle, Chasm's children, Earth's children, heaven and earth's children, Kronos overthrows heaven. Second cycle, grandchildren through Night, grandchildren through Sea, grandchildren through Kronos, Zeus overthrows Kronos. A number of parallels between Hesiod's genealogy and the biblical account of creation may be noted. The Bible opens with the words, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was formless and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep." Genesis 1:1-2. During the first 3 days of the creation week, the Lord separates night and day, heaven and earth, and waters and sea, and in the following 3 days, he fills each realm with suitable creatures. Compare Hesiod. First came the chasm, and then broad-breasted earth, secure seat forever of all the immortals who occupy the peak of snowy Olympus, the misty Tatara in a remote recess of the broad-pathed earth, and Eros, the most handsome among the immortal gods. Out of the chasm came Erebos, the realm of darkness, and dark night, and from night in turn came bright air and day, whom she bore and shared intimacy with Erebos. Earth bore first of all one equal to herself, starry heaven, so that he should cover her all about, to be a secure seat forever for the blessed gods. And she bore the long mountains, pleasant haunts of the goddesses, the nymphs who dwell in mountain glens, and she bore also the undraining sea and its furious swell, not in union of love. But then, bedded with heaven, she bore deep swirling oceans. Pages 6-7. Chasm, Greek chaos, which West describes as a dark, yawning space beneath the earth, parallels the deep of Genesis 1 and 2. Both Hesiod and Genesis view creation as a series of separations, and the separations are in the same order. Day and night are the first creatures made, and in both texts, night precedes day. Hesiod's description of earth, giving birth to heaven, resembles the Lord's action on day 2, when he places a firmament between the waters below and waters above, separating the waters of heaven and earth. And the birthing of mountains and sea is similar to the separation of waters and land on day 3 of creation. Hesiod and the Bible, moreover, describe the structure of the resulting cosmos in similar terms. Proverbs 8:30 describes wisdom as a master workman who assisted the Lord in creating and organizing the world. Thus the world is being pictured as a cosmic house, often with 3 stories. The second commandment, for example, forbids bowing to images of anything in heaven above, earth beneath, or the waters under the earth. Exodus 20:4. Heaven is a roof, earth is the main floor, and the seas form the flooded basement of the world. Hesiod's conception is similar. After Kronos forcibly separates heaven and earth, the universe is divided into 3 main regions, heaven, earth, and sea. Children of heaven and earth are associated with one or the other of these regions. The children of Oceanus and Tethys are rivers, while the children of Hyperion and Theia as well as those of Creos and Eurybia, are stars or planets. Zeus honors Hecate by giving her a share both of the earth and of the undraining sea. From the starry heaven, too, she has a portion of honor. During Zeus's battle with Typhoeus, the whole universe is in an uproar. All the land was seething, and sky and sea. To these, Hesiod sometimes adds a fourth region, Tartarus, which is most elaborately described in the account of the war with the Titans. Tartarus is as far below the earth as heaven is from the earth, so that it takes 9 days for an anvil to fall from earth to the bottom of Tartarus. It is below the roots of the earth and of the undraining sea, where darkness is spread about its neck in 3 layers. Here the Titans are confined after Zeus's victory, and Poseidon keeps them in Tartarus by fastening bronze doors and building a wall. Tartarus appears in later Greek mythology as a region similar to the biblical hell. Despite these similarities between Hesiod and the Bible, the differences are even more striking. The most obvious difference appears immediately. According to Genesis, God created the heavens and the earth, and throughout the Bible, this Creator rules all things. This is different from the Greek myth in 3 crucial ways. First, Hesiod's myth is not really a creation story, since there is no creator. Chasm just is, and earth also pops up from nowhere to give birth to the rest of the cosmos. Eros, the god of sexual love, is available to make sure that the various gods unite to form new gods. In Scripture, the formless emptiness of earth in Genesis 1:2 is a product of the Creator's original speech. Thus, second, for the Greeks, the world is as eternal and divine as the gods themselves. In fact, earth and heaven are older than the Olympian gods, who are not born for 2 more generations. As Hesiod's title indicates, he is telling the story of the origins of the gods, their birth, and their genealogy. For the Bible, God has no genealogy nor origins. He and He alone simply is, and there is no other. Finally, all of this reflects a basic Greek view that the universe is a great chain of being. There are 2 ways to think about how God relates to the world. In the Christian view, God is different from the world, above it. At the same time, He personally and actively controls every detail of history and nature, acting within creation and controlling it without being subject to created limits. In the Greek view, the gods in the world are not basically different from one another, but are at different ends of a continuum. Think of a totem pole. At the top of the pole is the god of the tribe, and as you go down, you find lower and lower forms of life. Men, women, large animals, toads, etc. Gods are higher, bigger, stronger, and wiser, but lower beings are of the same stuff. In theogony, Zeus has more power than other beings, but Zeus is no more God than Earth herself. This is why Zeus can have sex with mortal women, and why some human beings can rise up to the level of the gods by performing heroic and glorious deeds. Other differences between Genesis and Hesiod appear as the story progresses. One key difference has to do with the source of creativity and renewal. In Scripture, the source of all creative power is God Himself. When, in the days of Noah, the world was corrupted and needed to be renewed, the Lord Himself sent the flood to cleanse the face of the land. For Hesiod, by contrast, earth is a fertile source of rebirth. With heaven, she gave birth to the original order of the world. And when heaven mistreats his children, earth advises Kronos how to overthrow him. And later, when Kronos repeats his father's mistakes, earth again intervenes to help Zeus. Both Kronos and Zeus are symbolically children of earth. Kronos is hid away in a cavern of earth, and later Zeus is hidden in a cave hard of access, down in the secret places of the numinous earth. From this perspective, the theogony is about a succession of worlds given birth by earth. She is creator and recreator. The gods who renew the order of the world are twice born, emerging from the womb of earth. They are of the earth, earthly. Earth and her children create and organize the world through violence, war, or sex. Earth gives birth without sex to heaven, but then the 2 unite, no doubt with the help of Eros, to produce Kronos and his siblings. Heaven hates all his children and jealously refuses to share his sovereignty with them, so he hides them in a dark cavern within their mother, Earth, until Kronos frees them. Kronos tells Earth he is willing to overthrow heaven, and mighty Earth was delighted. She set him hidden in ambush, put the sharp-toothed sickle into his hand, and explained the whole stratagem to him. Great heaven came, bringing on the night, and desirous of love, he spread himself over Earth, stretched out in every direction. His son reached out from the ambush with his left hand. With his right, he took the huge sickle with its long row of sharp teeth and quickly cut off his father's genitals and flung them behind him to fly where they might. Page 8. By this violent act on his father, Kronos separated heaven and earth, forming the world we now know, with blue sky above and green earth below. Kronos apparently learns nothing from his own childhood traumas and treats the children he fathers with Rhea in much the same way, swallowing each as they come from Rhea's womb until Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon have all been swallowed whole. Distraught at her husband's behavior, Rhea runs to Earth and Heaven, Mom and Dad, to complain. They assure her that Kronos is already fated to receive due punishment, and at their suggestion, Rhea hides her youngest son Zeus in a cavern within Earth. To ensure that Kronos has no suspicions, Rhea wraps a stone in a blanket and delivers a substitute to Kronos. Meanwhile, rapidly then Zeus's courage and resplendent limbs grew. And when the due time came around, the great crooked schemer Kronos, tricked by the cunning council of Earth, defeated by his son's strength and stratagem, brought his brood back up. For example, he vomited the children he had swallowed. Pages 17 and 18. Having overthrown Kronos, who had overthrown his father, Zeus claimed supreme kingship, but his claim is tested by 3 battles. The first is against his uncles, the other children of heaven and earth, known collectively as Titans. Zeus enlists the help of the other monstrous children of heaven and earth who had been confined in the dark recesses of earth, the 100-armed, 50-headed giants Obraereos, Kotos, and Gyges. These assault the Titans with rocks so that Zeus triumphs, confining the Titans below the earth down in the misty gloom. Pages 24 and 25. While Zeus and the other leading Olympians divide the universe into 3 sections. Zeus takes the sky and earth, Poseidon the sea, and Hades the underworld. Unlike his father and grandfather, Zeus is willing to share his domain and honor with his siblings and with other deities like Styx and Hecate. Like a good king, Zeus ascends on high and gives gifts. This is what makes his rule just. So far as Hesiod is concerned, the victory of Zeus as king and lord of immortals and humans is all for the good. But the story of his triumph over the Titans gives cause for alarm. Zeus enlists the aid of some of the monstrous children of heaven and earth, who were so loathsome at birth that heaven put them back in earth's womb, deep in an unlighted cavern. After driving the Titans into Tartarus, trapped by Poseidon's bronze doors, the 3 monsters are appointed as trusty guardians of Zeus. Zeus brings a peace and justice that depends on monstrous guardians. Olympus rules only with the help of the giants. Their cooperation with darker powers is a major theme of Greek tragedy and is also evident in Virgil's Aeneid. Zeus's second contest is a battle of wits with Prometheus, which we shall examine in the following section. His last battle is with the youngest child of Earth, Tripheus, a contest between the Olympian son of Earth and his monstrous brother. Again, a cosmic battle follows, ringing through heaven, earth, and sea, shaking Olympus and heating the land until it seethes. This time, however, Zeus needs no help from his monstrous henchmen. Casting a thunderbolt of Tripheus, he scorched all the strange heads of the dreadful monster on every side, so that he collapsed, crippled, and the huge earth groaned. In each case, the chief god wins or defends his dominion by ambush, as in Kronos' victory over heaven, trickery, Kronos and Zeus both deceive their fathers to take control, or outright war, Zeus's war against the Titans, in Tripheus. Violence is, for Hesiod, a normal feature of divine life. Hesiod's imagery suggests that even when some part of the world is born sexually, war is involved. He describes the noise of the battle between Olympians and Titans with this striking image. It seemed just as if earth and broad heaven above were coming together, for even such a mighty din would be arising with her being crashed down upon and him crashing down from above. There is little to choose between sex or war, both involve the violent clash of opposites. This story of a violent secession of gods is not an invention of Hesiod. In a number of details, Zeus's story, especially his triumph over Kronos, closely follows myths from the ancient Near East, that is, the world of the Bible. In recent decades, classical historians have increasingly acknowledged the similarities between ancient Greek artistic styles, language, myths, and rituals, and those of the ancient Near East. As the Swiss historian Walter Burkert put it, the Greeks of the 7th century BC, 700 to 600 BC, experienced an orientalizing revolution, a revolution from the East. Hesiod stands close to the beginning of this period, and his work shows more obvious signs of Eastern influence than Homer. West summarizes the similarities between the Hittite mythologies, which are based on earlier Hurrian stories, and the theogony of Hesiod. In the Hittite myths, there are 4 generations of rulers instead of 3. But the first king, Alalu, is a non-entity. The second, Anu, is the Akkadianized form of the Sumerian An equals sky, and he therefore corresponds to Uranos, heaven, in name as well as in rank. He had no cult among the Hittites. Like Uranos, he is castrated and the gods are born from his severed members. The third king, Kumarbi, like Kronos, castrates his father and swallows his son, and probably a stone. In a Hurrian text from Ras Shamra, Kumarbi is equated with El, and the Greeks identified the Phoenician El with Kronos. The identity of Kronos and Kumarbi is thus indirectly confirmed. The fourth king is the weather god, who is a chief god corresponding to the Greek Zeus. He survives Kumarbi's attempt to destroy him and is victorious in a Theomachy war of the gods. Like Zeus again, he is threatened even after his victory by a prodigious monster and defeats him. Genesis 1, in contrast to both the Hittite and Greek myths, contains no hint of conflict. God sovereignly and creatively speaks the world into existence. The world is a product of language, the word of the Father, not of sex or violence or violent sex. Creation is a sheer gift of love from a creator who has no need to make the world at all. Of course, the Bible recognizes the reality of evil, but it teaches that the original creation was a place of harmony and peace, a mirror of the eternal communion within the triune God himself. Wrath and discord come only because of Adam's disobedience, and in the new heavens and earth they shall be finally eliminated. In the Greek world, salvation from conflict and evil is impossible. Everything is conceived in violence and will always be violent. Zeus forever remains allied to the monsters. The comic epic of Hesiod ends with several of Zeus's marriages. Warfare that ends with marriage is a common motif in literature, from King David killing 200 Philistines to win the hand of Michael, to Prince Charming battling the dragon to rescue Sleeping Beauty, to Jesus leading his armies to victory just before the bride descends from heaven. Revelation 19 through 21. Linked with this is a victory house building pattern frequently found in Scripture. After David defeats the Philistines, he wishes to build the Lord's house, but instead the Lord promises to build him a house of descendants. Jesus came to defeat Satan in his death and resurrection, and is now at work building his church, against which the gates of hell will not prevail. Similarly, in this story, Zeus, having defeated the rivals of his throne, begins to build his house, gathering his harem and fathering many children. Having won his victory, Zeus enters into his rest. Each marriage reveals something about the character and attributes of Zeus. Zeus first marries Metis, whose name means cunning or cleverness. Metis gives birth to Athena, or Tritogenia, who possesses courage and sound counsel equal to her father's. Unwilling to part with Athena's qualities, Zeus puts her away in his belly first, so that the goddess could advise him of what was good and bad. Zeus is thus, as Homer puts it, resourceful Zeus, full of cunning, clever disguises, and shrewdness. This is an ambiguous description, for cunning can be good or bad quality depending upon what one is being cunning about. His second marriage has more positive offspring. From his marriage to Themis, right order in nature and society, Zeus fathers the Watchers, lawfulness, justice, and peace. Thus, Zeus, in cooperation with proper order, brings justice and peace to a community. As noted above, the orders of heaven and Kronos were flawed because each god was willing to kill his children rather than share his realm with them. Zeus establishes right order because he distributes honor, tamai, to the other Olympians who share in his rule. Hesiod is moving here from mythology to political thought, and later Greek philosophers adopt his terminology, though they gradually strip away the mythic clothing. Though there are formal similarities between Zeus's story and stories from the Bible, the end of Hesiod's epic shows that there are tremendous differences between Zeus and Yahweh. The difference is not, however, that Zeus has many brides and Yahweh has none. Rather, the difference is that Zeus has many brides and Yahweh has only one, his church. Yahweh is monogamous, the husband of one wife, while Zeus is a philanderer on a scale that even Bill Clinton will never rival. Surrounded by minor deities, Zeus wants to make sure that he has everything they have. Being the one and only God, Yahweh has all good in himself, and since he is one, he can have only one bride. The story of Yahweh ends like the story of Zeus, with a wedding. For the Bible, too, is or rather, the comedy. Part 3, page 73. Prometheus and the Gifts of the Gods. It is striking that Hesiod nowhere tells how human beings were first made, though in another work, Works and Days, Hesiod tells about the 5 ages of man, another motif borrowed from the East. Originally, gods and mortal men have come from the same starting point, yet men have gradually degenerated from that origin. First, men were made of gold and lived in a paradise where work and misery did not exist. Why this age came to an end, Hesiod does not say. After the Golden Age came the Silver Age, during which men suffered because of their own witlessness and crimes. Silver men were eventually put away by Zeus because they refused to pay homage to the Olympians. Bronze men followed and were a terrible and fierce race, occupied with the woeful works of Ares and with acts of violence. These were laid low by their own hands. After them came the race of heroes, who lived during the time of the Trojan War, some of whom were given a life on the Isles of the Blessed Ones. Finally, Hesiod himself lived in the 5th race, a race of iron that will never cease from toil and misery by day or night, in constant distress, and the gods will give them harsh troubles. Iron men, like the others, are doomed to be destroyed. Works and Days, page 40. Note, none of this appears in Theogony. Men appear only as marginal characters in the succession of wars of the gods. Despite the brevity of his description, Hesiod tells about the origins of basic practices of human life, which are the focus of the stories of Prometheus, the son of Cronus' brother, Iapetos, who might be in some way related to the biblical Japheth. This link with biblical genealogies suggests that Hesiod is presenting a garbled version of real history, as recorded in Scripture. Even the Titanic characters in Hesiod's work have parallels in the Bible's account of early history. The Bible records that there were giants, Nephilim, in the earth from ancient times, Genesis 6:4, and 2 Peter 2:4 refers to angels being cast into Tartarus, which is a place reserved for Titans in Hesiod's account. Prometheus's genealogy is important to understand his place in Hesiod's world. He is not an Olympian, but he is not immortal either. In each of these 3 stories that Hesiod tells, he takes the side of human beings against Zeus, though it seems less out of love for men than out of resentment against the Olympians. The first story has to do with the origins of Greek sacrificial practice. Sacrifice was central to all ancient religion, including Israel's, and to understand the importance of this story, we need to reflect on its meaning. We use the word sacrifice to mean giving up something that is dear to us. When we help a poor person beyond the expected degree, we act sacrificially. A baseball player sacrifices his own batting statistics to advance a runner to third. A soldier makes the ultimate sacrifice by giving his life for his comrades or country. When applied to religion, we think of sacrifice as giving up of an animal or some gift to God or the gods. Though this element is present in ancient understandings of sacrifice, it is not fundamental. Instead, what is crucial is the link sacrifice establishes between God and men, and this connection frequently involves meals. The Hebrew word for sacrifice means slaughter and refers to the killing of an animal in preparation for a common meal, as well as for a religious ritual. In the Bible, the sacrificial meat that is burned on the altar is called God's bread, and the priest, and sometimes a worshiper, ate from this same meat. Sacrifice thus has to do with the common meal that God and men share at the Lord's altar, which is also his table. As Jean-Pierre Vernant, a scholar of ancient Greek religion, points out, in Greek the verbs for butcher and sacrifice are the same. To sacrifice means to kill and prepare an animal for a sacred meal. In both Hebrew and Greek sacrifice, different amounts of sacrificial meat were distributed to different people, depending on a person's place in the community. In the Old Testament peace offering, for example, the fat and inner organs, considered the best portions, were offered to the Lord. The breast and right thigh were given to the priest, and the remainder of the food was given to the worshiper. In many Greek sacrifices, the one presiding at the sacrifice received a special portion, as did some of the leading men of the group. Sacrifice was a central part of the religion of the Greek city-state, and again the distribution of the meat reflected rankings within the city. Some feasts were reserved for the leaders of the city, and in many cases, non-citizens were not allowed to participate in sacrificial feasts at all. When they did share the meal, they had to accompany a citizen. Feasts provided a small glimpse of the arrangement of the city. When we put these two features of sacrifice together, we can understand something of the significance of sacrifice to the Greeks. On the one hand, the fact that men shared the same meat as the gods meant that gods and men were table fellows and friends. On the other hand, the way sacrificial flesh was distributed showed that there was also a distance between them. Sacrifice was a reminder of the closeness and the distance of the gods. Each sacrifice told the worshiper that men no longer lived in the Golden Age, when men sat across from the gods at the same table. Sacrifice, like the structure of the world itself, is a product of rivalry and trickery, though this time Zeus is on the receiving end of the trick. When gods and mortal men were coming to a settlement of Mykone, Prometheus had carved up a big ox and served it in such a way as to mislead Zeus. For him he laid out meat and entrails rich with fat in the hide, covering it in the ox's stomach, while for men he laid out the ox's white bones, which he arranged carefully for a cunning trick by covering them in glistening fat. With both hands Zeus took up the white fat, and he grew angry about the lungs, and wrath reached him to the spirit when he saw the white ox bone set for a cunning trick. Ever since that, the peoples on earth have burned white bones for the immortals on aromatic altars. Page 19. Several features of this story are noteworthy. First, the distribution of the sacrificial animal is very different from that in the Bible. In the Old Testament, burnt offering, all the animal's flesh, was given to the Lord, Leviticus 1. And in other sacrifices, the best portions, the fat and internal organs, were always placed on the altar. In Greek sacrifice, the gods are given bones and the fat, while the meat and internal organs are eaten by men. Second, this distribution highlights the distance between the immortal gods and mortal men. According to the Greek conception, men are bread eaters and meat eaters, while gods feed on ambrosia and in sacrifice receive fat and bones that have been turned into smoke. Meat-eating men become hungry and have to be filled again and again. Their life is necessarily a life of unfulfilled desire and lack. The fact that Prometheus places the meat in a stomach highlights this aspect of human life. Stomachs constantly need to be filled, and this turns man, in Vernant's words, into a meat sack. In Works and Days, Prometheus's trick is referred to only in passing. But there Hesiod adds an important detail. As parts of the condition of men after the Golden Age, the gods keep men's food concealed. Otherwise, you would easily work, even in a day, enough to provide you for the whole year without working. Unlike the Golden Age, when men could find sufficient food without labor, Zeus has now hidden food in the earth. Man has to plant, water, and toil to uncover the grain foods concealed in the earth. This is Zeus' fitting punishment for Prometheus's trick of concealing the meat inside the stomach. In Theogony, Zeus responds to Prometheus's hiding of the meat by hiding fire. With his anger ever in mind, Zeus would not give to the ash trees the power of untiring fire for mortal men who live on earth. The parallel of Prometheus's trick and Zeus's response is clearer in Works and Days, where Hesiod says that Zeus concealed fire, and the word in Greek for concealing fire is the same as that used for covering the bones and fat. Control of fire is one of the unique characteristics of human life. Fire is one of the key lines between civilization and savagery. Man without fire is a beast, forced to eat meat raw, struggling to warm himself, unable to work with metals and materials that are necessary to a technically advanced civilization. Winning the chief portion of the sacrifice was an act of pride, man's attempt, through Prometheus, to better Zeus. Zeus's response reduces man to the level of a beast, without fire, without cooking. Prometheus again comes to a man's rescue, ensuring that humans will not remain at the level of the beasts. The noble son of Iapetos outwitted Zeus by stealing the far-beaconing flare of untiring fire in the tube of a fennel. Though a great gift to man, fire is ambiguous, both beneficial and dangerous. Moreover, the fire that Prometheus brings to man is not the everlasting fire of Olympus, but the mortal fire of earth. Like the stomach in which he concealed man's meat, the fire of Prometheus symbolizes the human condition. As Vernant puts it, it is a perishable fire, created hungry and precarious, like all mortal creatures. To start, it requires a seed of fire, kept beneath the ashes or carried in the hollow of a fennel stalk in the Promethean manner. To keep it alive, it must be fed. It dies when it is not nourished, fire's insatiable voracity, which makes it devour everything in its path, would liken it to a wild animal, as many formulas appearing as early as Homer suggest. With sacrifice, fire indicates man's position in the cosmos, less than a god because he eats flesh rather than ambrosia. Man is more than a beast, for he cooks his food. Centuries later, Samuel Johnson was keeping alive the same perspective. Beasts think and feel, Johnson claimed, but no beast is a cook. Prometheus's gift of fire transgresses the will of Zeus, who had concealed fire from men. Therefore Zeus seeks to punish men with his final trap, a woman, a beautiful evil, in Greek, Kalan Kakan. Zeus designed the woman, ambidexter molded earth into the likeness of a modest maid. Athena dressed her in a white garment and veil and placed a diadem on her head, and according to Works and Days, Aphrodite showered charm about her head in painful yearning and consuming passion. In Works and Days, Hesiod names her Pandora, all gift, which means both that all the gods adorned her and that she brought men every gift. Zeus realized that Prometheus, whose name means far-sighted, would see through the trap, so he sent Pandora to Prometheus's dim-witted brother, Epimetheus, whose name means short-sighted. Prometheus had already warned his brother not to accept gifts from Zeus, but Epimetheus forgets and accepts Pandora, along with her box full of all the evils of the world. The story ends with Hesiod's brief comment that, formerly the tribes of men on earth lived remote from ills, without harsh toil and the grievous sicknesses that are deadly to men. But the woman unstopped the jar and let it all out, and brought grim cares upon mankind. Only hope remained there inside her secure dwelling under the lip of the jar, and did not fly out, because a woman put the lid back in time by the providence of Zeus the cloud-gatherer, who bears the aegis. Works and Days, pages 39 through 40. This episode of Pandora's Box is well known, but in the context of Hesiod's writings, it manifests a great deal about Hesiod's view of women, marriage, and human life. First, this continues the themes of trickery, concealment, and hiding in the relations of gods and men. Prometheus concealed meat within the stomach, bones within the fat, and fire in the fennel stalk. Zeus responds by concealing food in the earth, hiding fire, and finally by concealing the heart of a woman. Works and Days, page 39, under the guise of a beautiful maiden. Outwardly, she is Kalon, beautiful, but inwardly she is Kekan, evil. Second, in Theogony, the woman, her name Pandora does not appear in this work, is an affection for mankind to set against the fire. This indicates several things. Most obviously, the woman is a punishment for Prometheus's theft of fire and is therefore against the fire. The phrase also suggests that the woman somehow corresponds to the fire, so that she is a fitting punishment for Prometheus's theft. Like the fire, Pandora is an ambiguous gift, bringing both good and evil. On the one hand, a man must marry. If he does not, he has no chance of an heir, and he grows to old age, lacking anyone to look after him. Yet, even if he marries a sensible wife, the bad will compete with the good, and if he gets an awful wife, he will live with unrelented pain in heart and spirit. Woman is an affliction also because she is suited only for prosperity and cannot survive poverty, which is so often the lot of man. As the bees in their sheltered nests feed the drones, those conspirators in badness, and while they busy themselves all day and every day, till sundown making the white honeycomb, the drones stay inside the sheltered cells and pile the toil of others into their own bellies. Even so, as a bane for mortal men has high thundering Zeus created women, conspirators in causing difficulty. Theogony, pages 20 to 21. Like the drone bee who sits inside the hive, the woman spends her days within the house. More seriously, she, like the drone, is a belly that consumes the products of man's labor without producing anything. This comparison thus reaches back to Prometheus's original trick. He hid meat in his stomach to keep it from Zeus. And Zeus punishes mankind by hiding a stomach in a beautiful woman, a meat sack that is never full. Woman is set against fire, for like the fire, she needs continual feeding. All this is very different from the biblical picture of the creation of woman. In Genesis 2, the fact that Adam lacks a partner is the one thing in the whole creation that is not good. Eve is given to Adam as a good gift, a helper suitable for him, and Adam accepts her for the good gift that she is. The biblical picture of the woman's role in the origin of evil also differs markedly from that of Hesiod. In Works and Days, Pandora releases evil, disease, and misery into the world. Though Hesiod is not clear about why or how she does this, later myths said she opened the jars of evils because of her insatiable curiosity. In Genesis 3, Eve first eats the fruit of the forbidden tree, but verse 8 indicates that Adam was with her through the whole temptation and refused to intervene to defend her against Satan. Adam, moreover, is clearly wrong to blame Eve for the sin, as Paul makes clear in Romans 5, when he says that sin entered by the disobedience of one man. According to Hesiod's story, the only thing left in the jar after Pandora opens it is hope. What is hope doing in the jar of evils? When it is left inside, does this mean that hope is nowhere to be found, since it is locked away in the jar? Or does it mean that hope always remains near to man, staying in its dwelling place? Vernant answers by pointing to the ambiguous nature of the Greek word for hope, elpis. The word is closer to the English word expectation, which can either be of good, hope, or of evil, fear. In the light of this, it is clear that unlike the gods, who have nothing to desire or fear, humans are always accompanied by elpis, expectation, like sacrifice, work, and women, is one of the fundamental constants of human life. This seems like simple common sense, of course. Human life is full of good and evil expectations. Christians, however, are called to live not by common sense, but by faith. All of us fear, but fear is not, as Hesiod would have it, a simple constant of human life. We fear because we fail in faith and love, for faith drives out anxiety about tomorrow, Matthew 6:25-34. And perfect love casts out fear, 1 John 4:18. For the Christian, hope is not ambiguous, but fully positive, because we serve a God who can perform what he has promised, and who has a constancy of character that Zeus entirely lacks. Hope, Paul says, does not disappoint, not because of any inherent power in our hopes, but because the love of God has been poured out within our hearts through the Holy Spirit. Romans 5:5. Both Hesiod and the Bible describe something like a fall, but the two accounts are very different. For Hesiod, work and women are necessary features of life after the decline from the Golden Age. In the Bible, however, God instructed Adam and Eve to subdue and take dominion before the fall, so that work is part of the original creation. As we have clearly seen, Eve is given before the fall, and marriage is part of the created order. Hesiod, we might say, sees man's fall as a fall into society and civilization. The Bible sees society and civilization as goods of the original world, and the fall strictly as a fall into sin, which corrupts man's civilizing efforts. Hesiod's man falls into civilization, yet the gods do not equip him for the task. Through theft and trickery, man must wrest from Zeus the tools by which civilizations are built. Zeus jealously guards his status at the top of the ladder of being. Not being himself the creator of earth and heaven, Zeus wants to make sure that no one else is a creator either. Yahweh is also a jealous God who will not share his glory or worship with another. Yet Yahweh is also the God who is love, the giving God who gives generously and without reproach. James 1:5-8. In particular, God is the source of all human creativity. Though he is creator, because he is creator, he pours his creating spirit upon creatures. This is brought out in Exodus 31, 1-11, where Yahweh tells Moses that he has given artistic skill to Bezalel and Aholiab so that they can make the tabernacle and its furnishings. Strikingly, this is only the fourth reference to the Spirit of God in the Bible. And it alludes clearly to the Spirit's activity in creation, Genesis 1:2. In Genesis 1, God's Spirit forms a cosmos. In Exodus, the same Spirit equips men with creative skill to form a new world. In both, Scripture reveals a God of love and a view of the world profoundly at odds with Hesiod's pagan Genesis.